The dust from the massacre still hung in the air when Jessie Scott opened her eyes, the taste of copper filling her mouth as she realized she was lying in a pool of her own blood. By some miracle, the Apache raiders had left her for dead among the ruins of the wagon, trained the sole survivor of 23 souls who had set out from Independence bound for California in the spring of 1871. She pushed herself up, wincing as pain shot through her shoulder where an arrow had pierced clean through. The bodies of her fellow travelers lay scattered across the plains, their belongings strewn about like discarded toys. Her parents, her younger brother, the kindly old schoolteacher who'd been telling stories just the night before, all gone. Jessie stumbled to her feet, her cotton dress stiff with dried blood, and did the only thing she could do. She walked. 3 days later, more dead than alive, she stumbled into the dusty streets of Redemption, Arizona territory. The townspeople gathered around the half-starved girl with wild eyes and blood-matted hair, whispering among themselves as the town doctor tended to her wounds. She told her story in halting sentences, tears streaming down her dirt-stained face. "She should be dead," someone whispered. "Ain't natural," another voice added. "Everyone dead 'cept her? The Lord don't spare just one without reason." The whispers followed her as she recovered in the back room of Mrs. Patterson's boarding house. They gave her clothes, food, and a place to sleep, but their kindness was tinged with unease. No one survived Apache attacks, not young girls traveling with their families. The rumors started small, then grew like weeds after a spring rain. Cursed, they called her. Touched by something unnatural. By the time a month had passed, most of Redemption crossed the street to avoid her shadow. Children were hurried away when she approached. Doors closed. Opportunities vanished. Until the day the tall stranger rode into town on a midnight black stallion, dust coating his trail-worn clothes and a star-shaped badge pinned to his vest. "Name's Kieran Davenport," he told the bartender at the Rusty Nail Saloon. "U.S. Marshal. Looking for information on Apache raids in these parts." The saloon fell silent as Kieran's gray eyes scanned the room, one hand resting casually on his Colt revolver. "Heard there was a survivor in these parts. Girl named Jessie Scott. You don't want nothing to do with that one, Marshal," the bartender said, leaning forward. "She's cursed. Only one who lived when them Apaches hit the Wilcox wagon train. 22 dead, her without a scratch." She had an arrow through her shoulder. A voice corrected from the corner. "Doesn't matter," the bartender continued. "Ain't natural. Bad things follow that girl." Kieran's weathered face remained impassive. "I'll be the judge of that. Where can I find her?" "Works at the general store." Old man Wilson took pity on her, only one in town who would. His business has suffered for it. When Kieran stepped into Wilson's general store later that afternoon, he spotted her immediately. Jessie Scott stood behind the counter, arranging jars of preserved peaches, her chestnut hair pulled back in a simple braid. She couldn't have been more than 20, but her eyes, deep brown and haunted, belonged to someone who had lived several lifetimes of sorrow. "Miss Scott?" he asked, removing his hat. She looked up, wariness creeping across her features. "Can I help you, sir?" "Marshal Kieran Davenport." He approached slowly, as one might a spooked horse. "I'm investigating Apache raids along the Western Territories. I'd like to speak with you about what happened to your wagon train." Her hands trembled slightly as she set down a jar. "There's not much to tell that you haven't already heard, I expect. I'd prefer to hear it from you, if you don't mind." Old man Wilson, a bent figure with kind eyes, stepped from the back room. "You can use my office, Jessie. Take all the time you need." In the cramped back office, surrounded by ledgers and invoices, Jessie told her story again. The pre-dawn attack, the screams, the arrow that knocked her from the wagon into a deep ravine where she lay, half-conscious, as the massacre continued above. How she'd played dead when an Apache brave found her, his face painted for war. How he'd looked into her eyes, said something in his native tongue, then left her there, the only one spared. "I don't know why I lived," she finished, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone says I'm cursed. Maybe they're right." Kieran studied her. "Do you believe you're cursed, Miss Scott?" Her eyes met his. "I believe I should have died with my family. But you didn't." His voice was firm, without judgment. "And surviving isn't a curse. Tell that to the people of Redemption." Bitterness edged her words. 3 children got sick after I served them candy from this very store. The miller's cow died after I walked past their farm. When the stage was robbed last month, folks said it was because I'd waved to the driver as it left town. She shook her head. It doesn't matter what I believe, Marshal. The town has decided. Kieran leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. I've been tracking a particular band of Apaches for 2 years. Their leader, a warrior called Black Hawk, has raided settlements from Texas to Arizona. If you could identify anything about the men who attacked your wagon train, it might help me stop them before more innocent people die. And then what? Where do I go when your investigation is done? She asked. No one wants the curse girl around. Before Kieran could respond, shouts erupted from the main room of the store. They rushed out to find 3 men confronting Wilson, their faces flushed with anger. We told you to send her away, Wilson, the tallest man bellowed, jabbing a finger toward Jessie. My boy's arm is broken, and it happened right after she handed him a peppermint stick yesterday. That's ridiculous, Frank, Wilson replied, standing his ground despite being considerably older and smaller than his antagonist. Bobby fell out of a tree. Everyone saw it. He wouldn't have been climbing if she hadn't put ideas in his head, another man chimed in. Ever since she came to town, nothing but trouble follows. Kieran stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving to his holster. Gentlemen, I suggest you take a step back and reconsider your position. The men turned, noticing the marshal's badge for the first time. The leader Frank spat on the floor. This ain't your business, Marshal. This is a local matter. Threatening a young woman and harassing a shopkeeper falls under my jurisdiction, Kieran replied calmly. Now, unless you want to discuss this further from inside my jail cell, I suggest you leave peacefully. The men retreated, muttering threats and casting dark glances at Jessie. When they were gone, Wilson sank into a chair, looking suddenly every one of his 70 years. It gets worse every week, he sighed. I'm sorry, Jessie. I don't know how much longer I can keep you on. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I understand, Mr. Wilson. You've been kinder than anyone. That evening, Kieran found Jessie sitting alone on the steps of the boarding house, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of orange and purple. He sat down beside her, offering a package wrapped in brown paper. Thought you might be hungry, he said as she unwrapped the bread and cheese he'd brought. Thank you. She took a small bite, her first food since the confrontation at the store. Mr. Wilson gave me until the end of the week. Said he couldn't risk losing what little business he has left. Kieran nodded. I heard. I've been asking around town. Seems like these curse incidents started happening well before you arrived. What do you mean? That boy with the broken arm? Turns out he's fallen out of that same tree twice before. The miller's cow was old and sickly. The stagecoach robbery was the work of the Barton gang, caught 2 of them last year near Tucson. He turned to face her. People are just looking for someone to blame for their misfortunes. You're convenient. Doesn't make my situation any better, she replied. Maybe not, but I have a proposition for you. Kieran shifted, suddenly seeming less sure of himself. I'm heading north tomorrow, tracking Black Hawk's band. I could use someone who's seen them, might recognize something important. Jessie stared at him. You want me to help hunt Apaches? I want you to help me prevent another massacre. And I'm offering you a way out of redemption. His expression softened. Unless you'd prefer to stay. The next morning, before the town had fully awakened, Jessie Scott climbed onto the spare horse Kieran had purchased, a gentle chestnut mare with a white blaze down her face. She carried everything she owned in a single saddlebag: 2 dresses, a hairbrush, a tattered Bible that had belonged to her mother, and a small pouch containing $17.32 her wages from the general store. As they rode past the town limits, a small group had gathered to watch them leave. Some faces showed relief, others curiosity, and a few, like old man Wilson, showed genuine concern. They think you're cursed too now, Jessie said quietly as they headed north toward the mountains. For helping me. Kieran's mouth quirked into a half-smile. Wouldn't be the first time. Besides, in my line of work, a little curse might keep things interesting. For the first time in months, Jessie felt the ghost of a smile touch her lips. They made camp that evening in a sheltered ravine, with juniper trees providing cover and a small stream gurgling nearby. As Kieran built a fire, Jessie tended to the horses, her movements revealing she was no stranger to life on the trail. Your family was heading to California? Kieran asked as they ate a simple meal of beans and salt pork. Jessie nodded. My father had a brother in San Francisco. He wrote about opportunities there, said a man with carpentry skills like Pa could make a good living. She poked at the fire with a stick. My mother didn't want to go. She was afraid of Indians. Kieran was quiet for a moment. I've dealt with many tribes over the years. Most want the same things we do to live in peace, raise their children, follow their traditions. But there are warriors like Black Hawk who've seen too much betrayal, lost too much to the white man's expansion. They fight because they believe it's the only way to survive. Does that excuse what they did to my family? To me? Her voice was tight with emotion. No, he answered honestly. Nothing excuses slaughtering innocent people, but understanding why it happens might help stop the cycle. Jessie stared into the flames. The brave who found me, he looked into my eyes for a long time. Then he said something and made a gesture, like this. She traced a symbol in the air. Do you know what it means? Kieran's expression changed, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. It's a sign to ward off death spirits. Among some Apache bands, they believe certain souls are protected by powerful guardians from the spirit world. He hesitated. He may have thought killing you would bring misfortune to him or his people. So I survived because of superstition, she said bitterly. Just like the people of redemption think I'm cursed because of superstition. People fear what they don't understand. On both sides. He added another log to the fire. Get some sleep. We've got a long ride tomorrow. As Jessie settled into her bedroll, she watched Kieran through half-closed eyes. The firelight played across his features, the strong jaw covered in several days' stubble, the creases at the corners of his eyes that spoke of squinting into desert suns, the scar that cut through his right eyebrow. He was older than her by at least 10 years, but there was something in his manner that suggested he'd lived several lifetimes already. For the first time since the massacre, she fell asleep without reliving the screams of her dying family. They traveled for 5 days, following an increasingly difficult trail into the foothills of the Mogollon Rim. Kieran proved to be a patient teacher, showing Jessie how to read sign broken twigs, disturbed stones, the pattern of hoofprints that told stories about those who had passed before them. He taught her to shoot his spare revolver, pleased to discover she had a natural eye for it. My father believed girls should know how to defend themselves, she explained as she reloaded the weapon. Said the frontier was no place for helpless women. On the 6th day, they encountered the first real evidence of Black Hawk's band, the remains of a small campsite, no more than 2 days old. They're moving northeast, Kieran said, examining the cold ashes of the fire. Probably heading toward the White Mountain Apache Reservation. Black Hawk has relatives there. Will you arrest him if we find him? Jessie asked, watching as Kieran collected an eagle feather that had been left behind. If I can. The army wants him hanged, but I prefer to see him stand trial. He tucked the feather into his saddlebag. Justice, not vengeance. Is there a difference when someone's taken everything from you? The question hung between them, heavy with the weight of her loss. That night, as they made camp beneath a massive ponderosa pine, a sudden spring storm swept in from the west. Rain pounded against the hastily erected canvas shelter, lightning splitting the sky with brilliant flashes that illuminated the surrounding forest in stark relief. Huddled together for warmth, their shoulders touching, Jessie found herself telling Kieran about her life before the massacre, about her mother's talent for making wild plum preserves, her father's ability to craft beautiful furniture from scraps of wood, her little brother's collection of unusual rocks that he carried in a leather pouch around his neck. I keep thinking I should have died with them, she whispered, her voice nearly drowned by the thunder. Maybe that's why people think I'm cursed, because I'm still here when I shouldn't be. Lightning flashed, illuminating Kieran's face as he turned to her. Do you know why I became a marshal? She shook her head. I was 16 when Comanche raiders hit our farm in Texas. Killed my parents, my older sister. I was in town that day, delivering grain to the mill. His voice was steady, but Jessie could sense the old pain beneath the words. For years, I blamed myself for not being there, for surviving when they didn't. What changed? I realized that living well, doing good in this world, that's how you honor those who didn't get the chance. His hand found hers in the darkness. You're not cursed, Jessie. You're being given an opportunity that your family would want you to embrace. His touch was warm, calloused from years of handling reins and firearms, but gentle. Something stirred within her, a feeling she'd thought had died alongside her family. For the first time in months, she felt truly alive, truly present in her own skin. The storm passed sometime in the night, leaving behind a world washed clean. When Jessie awoke at dawn, she found Kieran already up, a troubled expression on his face as he studied the surrounding forest. "What's wrong?" she asked, immediately alert. "We're being watched." He kept his voice low. "Have been since yesterday, I think. At least 2 riders, keeping their distance." Fear crawled up her spine. Apaches? Maybe. Or could be outlaws. This country's full of men who'd happily relieve a marshal of his badge, his guns, and his life. He handed her the spare revolver. "Stay close today." They packed quickly and continued northeast, following a game trail that wound through increasingly dense forest. Kieran kept one hand near his holster, his eyes constantly scanning the tree line. By midday, even Jessie could sense the presence of their shadows, an occasional flash of movement glimpsed through the trees, the distant sound of a horse's snort carried on the wind. "They're hurting us," Kieran finally said as they reached a narrow pass between 2 rocky slopes. "Driving us where they want us to go. What do we do?" Before he could answer, a rifle shot cracked through the air. Kieran's horse reared, nearly throwing him as splinters of bark exploded from a tree trunk inches from his head. "Run!" he shouted, drawing his revolver and firing 3 rapid shots toward the ridge where the ambush had originated. Jessie dug her heels into her mare's flanks, and they galloped forward into the pass. More shots rang out, bullets whining past them like angry hornets. Kieran was right behind her, returning fire whenever possible. The pass opened into a small valley, and Jessie's heart sank as she saw what awaited them: a group of mounted warriors blocking their path, their faces painted for war. "Hold up," Kieran called, and she reined in her frightened horse. They were surrounded warriors on the ridge behind them, more ahead. Slowly, Kieran holstered his weapon and raised his hands to show they were empty. Jessie followed his lead, her heart hammering against her ribs. One warrior rode forward, his black hair adorned with eagle feathers, his face marked with red and white paint. He carried a Winchester rifle across his lap and wore an army cavalry jacket that had clearly been taken from a dead soldier. "Black Hawk," Kieran said quietly to Jessie. "Don't show fear." The Apache leader studied them with cold, calculating eyes. Then his gaze fell on Jessie, and something like recognition flickered across his features. He spoke rapidly in his native tongue to one of his companions. "What's he saying?" Jessie whispered. "Something about the spirit touched one. He recognizes you." Kieran kept his voice steady. "The warrior who spared you must have told others." Black Hawk pointed at Jessie and spoke again, this time in broken English. She marked, "Death's spirit reject her." His eyes narrowed. "Why you bring her here?" Kieran straightened in his saddle. "I'm a United States Marshal. I came to talk peace, not to fight." Black Hawk spat on the ground. "White man peace mean Apache death. Always same words, same lies." "Not this time," Kieran insisted. "I want to prevent more bloodshed on both sides." The warriors conferred among themselves, glancing repeatedly at Jessie. Finally, Black Hawk gestured with his rifle. "You come. Both. Talk." They were led to an encampment nestled in a hidden valley, a temporary village of hide teepees with smoke rising from cooking fires. Women paused in their work to stare at the white prisoners. Children were hurried into shelters, and older men watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Inside Black Hawk's teepee, they sat cross-legged on woven mats while the Apache leader smoked from a ceremonial pipe. 2 other warriors joined them, one an elder with deep lines etched into his face, the other a younger man who Jessie realized with a jolt was the brave who had spared her life. The young warrior stared at her intently, then spoke to Black Hawk, gesturing animatedly. The elder listened, then addressed Kieran. "Swift arrows say he find this one after battle." The elder translated, his English more fluent than Black Hawk's. She looked at him with eyes of one already walking with spirits. He could not take her life, would bring bad medicine. Jessie's hands trembled in her lap. "Ask him why they attacked our wagon train. We were peaceful travelers. We had children with us." When the elder translated her question, Swift Arrow's expression hardened. He spoke rapidly, his voice rising with emotion. He say white settlers killed his wife, his small daughter 3 moons ago, the elder translated. Soldiers burn Apache crops, poison water holes, push us from hunting grounds. Each raid is answer for white man crime against our people. Vengeance only brings more vengeance, Kieran said quietly. More widows, more orphans, Apache and white alike. Black Hawk leaned forward. What you offer instead, Marshal? More broken treaties? More lies? A chance to speak directly with the territorial governor. To negotiate for protected hunting grounds, for justice when crimes are committed against your people. Kieran met Black Hawk's gaze without flinching. I have his ear. He'll listen. Why you help Apache? Black Hawk demanded. Because I've seen too many die on both sides of this conflict, Kieran replied. And because I believe in justice for everyone. The discussion continued as daylight faded, the atmosphere in the teepee tense, but no longer openly hostile. Jessie watched Kieran navigate the complex negotiations with a skill she hadn't expected, showing respect without weakness, offering compromises while holding firm on key points. As night fell, they were given permission to remain in the camp, technically prisoners, but treated with cautious hospitality. A small teepee was provided for Jessie, while Kieran would sleep under guard near Black Hawk's dwelling. What happens now? Jessie asked as they were allowed a brief moment together before being separated. We've opened a door, Kieran replied. Black Hawk is willing to meet with the governor, but he doesn't trust the army to provide safe passage. He wants me to arrange the meeting on neutral ground. And if it works? If there's peace? His eyes met hers in the gathering darkness. Then maybe fewer girls will have to endure what you did. Fewer warriors will lose their families. A woman approached them, indicating it was time for Jessie to retire to her shelter. As she turned to go, Kieran caught her hand. They don't see you as cursed here, he said softly. They believe you're protected by powerful spirits. In their eyes, you're blessed, not cursed. That night, lying on a bed of soft furs in the Apache teepee, Jessie thought about how quickly her life had changed. 2 weeks ago, she had been the pariah of redemption, working in a general store and enduring the fearful glances of townspeople. Now she was in an Apache camp, part of negotiations that could change the course of relations between settlers and natives throughout the territory. And then there was Kieran, a man who had seen her not as a cursed survivor, but as someone worth saving, worth knowing. The memory of his hand holding hers during the thunderstorm sent warmth spreading through her chest. At dawn, she was awakened by Swift Arrow's wife, a young woman named Morning Bird who spoke a few words of English. She brought Jessie fresh water and indicated she should come outside. The camp was already busy with morning activities, women preparing food, men tending to horses, children running and playing. Swift Arrow approached, his manner solemn but not unfriendly, and gestured for Jessie to follow him. He led her to a secluded spot near a small stream where, to her surprise, Kieran was waiting. The marshal looked tired but unharmed, relief washing over his features when he saw her. Black Hawk has agreed to our proposal, he told her as Swift Arrow stepped away to give them privacy. I'll ride to Fort Apache today to arrange the meeting with the governor. You'll stay here as insurance of my return. Alarm flashed through her. They're keeping me hostage. More like a respected guest who ensures my good behavior, he corrected gently. You'll be safe. Swift Arrow has personally guaranteed it apparently. He believes harming you would bring terrible fortune to his people. How long will you be gone? 4 days, maybe 5. The governor is inspecting the fort this week. It's fortunate timing. He hesitated. Are you afraid to stay? Jessie considered the question honestly. No, she finally said, surprising herself. They've treated us with more respect than the people of Redemption ever did. Kieran's face softened. When this is over, you could come with me to Prescott. It's a growing town, opportunities for a young woman with your courage and intelligence. Is that all I would be to you in Prescott? A young woman you helped? The question slipped out before she could stop it. He stepped closer, his eyes holding hers. You know it wouldn't be. Before she could respond, Swift Arrow returned, indicating it was time for Kieran to prepare for his journey. As he walked away, Kieran glanced back once, his expression conveying everything he hadn't had time to say. The days of Kieran's absence passed in a strange rhythm of apprehension and discovery. Though technically a hostage, Jessie was given freedom to move about the camp. Morning Bird took her under her wing, teaching her Apache words and showing her how to prepare traditional foods. The children, initially shy, gradually accepted her presence, even including her in their games. Swift Arrow remained distant but watchful, his role apparently that of both guard and protector. Through Morning Bird's limited English and gestures, Jessie learned that he believed she carried powerful medicine, that the spirits had marked her as someone with an important destiny. "He say you bridge," Morning Bird explained on the third day, as they worked together grinding corn. "Between two worlds." On the fourth day, Black Hawk summoned Jessie to his teepee. The Apache leader studied her in silence for several long moments before speaking, the elder translating his words. "Why you not hate Apache?" he asked. "We kill your family. Take your old life." Jessie considered her answer carefully. "I did hate. I still grieve. But hatred is a fire that consumes the one who carries it." She thought of Kieran's words about honoring the dead by living well. "My family would want me to build something new, not be destroyed by the past." Black Hawk nodded slowly. "Apache way same. We remember our dead, honor them, but must live for those still here." He gestured to the camp outside. "My people suffer, need hunting grounds, need peace for children to grow strong." "That's what Kieran the Marshal wants to help with," Jessie said. "You trust this man?" Black Hawk asked, his dark eyes piercing. "With my life," she answered without hesitation. The leader seemed satisfied with her response. As she left the teepee, the elder walked alongside her for a few steps. "Black Hawk losing faith in peace," he said quietly. "Too many broken promises. If your marshal not return tomorrow, war will continue." That night, Jessie couldn't sleep, worry for Kieran gnawing at her. What if something had happened to him? What if the army refused to cooperate? What if he had been arrested for negotiating with Apaches the military considered hostile? Dawn broke with no sign of him. The camp grew tense as the morning wore on, warriors preparing weapons, women packing essential items. Black Hawk watched the eastern trail, his expression growing darker with each passing hour. By midday, Swift Arrow approached Jessie where she sat mending a torn dress Morning Bird had given her. "Marshal not come," he said in halting English. "Black Hawk say prepare to move camp." "He'll be here," Jessie insisted. He gave his word. Swift Arrow's expression remained doubtful, but he nodded respectfully before walking away. As the afternoon sun began its descent toward the western horizon, a cry went up from the edge of the camp. Jessie ran toward the commotion to see a small dust cloud in the distance, riders approaching from the east. Black Hawk ordered his warriors into defensive positions, women and children retreating to the center of the camp. Jessie stood her ground, straining to see through the dust. "It's him," she said as the lead rider came into view. "And he's not alone." Kieran rode at the front of a small party, three other men who, from their dress, appeared to be government officials rather than soldiers. He raised a hand in greeting as they approached, his eyes immediately finding Jessie among the Apache. Relief washed over her at the sight of him, followed by something deeper, warmer. In that moment, watching him ride toward her tired, dusty, but triumphant, she knew with absolute certainty that whatever happened next, she wanted him beside her. The negotiations lasted 2 days. The territorial governor himself had not come, but had sent his chief Indian affairs advisor, along with a judge and a representative from Washington. They met in Black Hawk's teepee, sometimes talking through the night by lamplight. Jessie assisted when needed, her presence seeming to reassure both sides. Kieran caught her eye often during the discussions, his glances speaking volumes even across the circle of men. On the evening of the second day, as sunset painted the mountains in gold and crimson, an agreement was reached. Black Hawk's band would be guaranteed hunting rights in specified areas, protection from settler encroachment, and representatives on a new territorial commission established to address grievances between natives and settlers. In return, the raids would stop, and Black Hawk would use his influence to encourage other Apache bands to pursue peaceful resolutions. As the officials prepared documents for signing, Kieran found Jessie sitting alone by the stream where they had spoken before his departure. "You did it," she said as he lowered himself to sit beside her on a sun-warmed rock. "You made peace." "We did it," he corrected. "Your presence here made a difference. Black Hawk's advisor told me they consider you a powerful omen, a bridge between worlds, as he put it." Morning Bird said the same thing. Jessie traced patterns in the dirt with a stick. What happens now? The officials return to Prescott tomorrow with the signed agreement. Black Hawk and his people head to the White Mountain Reservation, where he'll meet with other leaders. Kieran turned to face her fully. And you and I. He trailed off, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. Yes, she prompted. That depends on you. His gray eyes held hers. I'm heading back to Prescott to file my report. I'd like you to come with me. As what? Marshal Davenport. Your witness? Your charge. She needed to hear him say it. As the woman I've come to care for more than I thought possible. He took her hand in his. When those men in redemption called you cursed, something in me couldn't bear it. I've seen too many good people broken by others' fear and ignorance. So you pitied me, she said, trying to withdraw her hand, but he held firm. No, Jessie, I recognized you. Someone who survived when others didn't. Someone carrying that burden of why me that I've carried for years. He moved closer. But these past 2 weeks, watching your courage, your compassion, even toward those who hurt you most, I stopped seeing the survivor and started seeing just you. A woman I want to know better. A woman I don't want to say goodbye to. Tears pricked at her eyes, but these were different from the tears of grief and loneliness she had grown accustomed to. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of you, but of feeling this way. Of wanting something for myself after everything that's happened. Your family would want you to be happy, he said softly. To love again. To build a new life. And what about your life? You're a U.S. Marshal. You follow dangerous men across dangerous country. Where does someone like me fit into that? Wherever you choose. He touched her face gently. I've been thinking of taking a position with the territorial court in Prescott. Less riding the trail, more helping establish justice in communities that need it. A man could put down roots in a place like that. Maybe even have a family someday. The word family sent a tremor through her heart, an ache of loss mingled with a fragile new hope. You'd give up the badge for that. Not give it up. Change what it means. He smiled slightly. Though I suspect you'll have your own pursuits. You've shown quite a talent for diplomacy these past days. As darkness fell around them, Jessie found herself leaning into Kieran's solid presence, drawing strength and comfort from his nearness. When he finally kissed her, it felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey, unexpected, but somehow inevitable. They left the Apache camp 2 days later, after the signing ceremony and a celebration feast that lasted well into the night. Black Hawk himself presented Jessie with a small medicine pouch on a leather cord for protection. The elder translated, though the leader's eyes suggested it meant much more. Swift Arrow and Morning Bird came to bid them farewell, the young warrior finally addressing Jessie directly. I see death's spirit in your eyes that day, he said in careful English. Now I see life's spirit. Good change. As they rode toward Prescott, the future opening before them like the wide Arizona sky, Kieran told her stories of the town, the growing courthouse where he hoped to work, the new hotel being built on Whiskey Row, the women's aid society that helped newcomers establish themselves. Sounds like civilization, Jessie remarked, smiling. Parts of it, he agreed. Still plenty wild enough to keep things interesting. They made camp that evening in a grove of cottonwoods beside a small, clear stream. After tending to the horses and sharing a simple meal, they sat side by side watching the stars emerge in the deepening blue of the desert twilight. Do you think they'll ever accept me in Prescott? Jessie asked suddenly. Or will I always be the cursed survivor? No one there knows your story unless you choose to tell it, Kieran replied. But I believe that anywhere would be better for having you. She leaned against his shoulder. When those men confronted me in Wilson's store, you told them you were taking me away. One of them said you'd be cursed too. She looked up at him. Does that worry you? Kieran's arms circled her waist, drawing her closer. They called you cursed for surviving, he said softly. If loving you is a curse, then curse me too. I'll gladly bear it. Under the vast canopy of stars, Jessie felt something settle within her, a sense of rightness, of possibility. The guilt of surviving would never fully leave her, but perhaps it could become something else. A responsibility to live fully, to love deeply, to create something meaningful from the life she had been granted when so many others had lost theirs. Then we'll be cursed together, she whispered, reaching up to touch his face, and make our own kind of blessing from it. 3 weeks later, they arrived in Prescott, the territorial capital nestled among ponderosa pines at the base of Thumb Butte. The journey had been leisurely, each day strengthening the bond between them, each night bringing them closer together under desert skies. Kieran had sent telegrams ahead from the last outpost they'd passed, so they were expected when they rode down Montezuma Street toward the courthouse. The territorial governor himself came out to greet them, along with several officials eager to hear firsthand about the treaty with Black Hawk. Marshal Davenport, the governor boomed, shaking Kieran's hand vigorously. Your report caused quite a stir in Washington. They're talking about using your approach as a model for Indian relations throughout the territories. The credit belongs as much to Miss Scott, Kieran replied, helping Jessie down from her horse. Her presence was instrumental in gaining Black Hawk's trust. The governor turned to Jessie with newfound interest. Indeed? Well, Miss Scott, it seems we owe you a debt of gratitude. I hope you'll consider staying in Prescott. We could use someone with your diplomatic talents. That's very kind, Jessie replied, somewhat overwhelmed by the warm reception. I haven't decided my plans yet. Miss Scott needs time to settle in. Kieran interjected smoothly. Mrs. Holliday at the Capitol House is expecting her. I took the liberty of arranging accommodations. As they walked through town toward the hotel, Jessie marveled at how different this welcome was from what she had experienced in Redemption. Here, she wasn't the cursed survivor, she was a woman who had helped broker peace with a feared Apache leader. Does the governor know about what happened to my family? She asked quietly as they turned onto Gurley Street. Only that you survived an attack and provided valuable information, Kieran answered. The details are yours to share or keep private as you wish. At the Capitol House, a respectable boarding house for single women, they were greeted by Mrs. Holliday, a plump, cheerful widow who showed Jessie to a small but comfortable room overlooking a garden. Marshal Davenport speaks very highly of you, my dear, the woman said, bustling about as she showed Jessie where everything was. Any friend of his is welcome here. We have breakfast at 7, dinner at noon, and supper at 6. The other ladies are mostly teachers and clerks, very respectable. When Mrs. Holliday finally left them alone for a moment, Kieran took both of Jessie's hands in his. I'll call for you tomorrow, he said. There's someone at the land office I want you to meet. And Judge Parker has invited us to dinner. He's eager to discuss the treaty. You've thought of everything, she said, a little overwhelmed. Not everything. His expression grew serious. Just enough to give you options, space to decide what you want. Your life is your own now, Jessie. She reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. And if what I want includes you? His smile warmed his entire face. Then I'm the luckiest man in the Arizona territory. Over the following weeks, Jessie found herself embraced by Prescott society in ways she couldn't have imagined. The governor's wife took a particular interest in her, introducing her to the Ladies' Aid Society and the Territorial Education Committee. Judge Parker's daughter invited her to literary gatherings where the town's intellectuals discussed everything from Shakespeare to territorial politics. And through it all, Kieran was there, respectful of her independence, but constant in his support. He had indeed been offered a position with the territorial court, serving as both marshal and legal advisor as Arizona moved toward eventual statehood. Their courtship progressed in full view of Prescott society, with proper chaperones and appropriate intervals between visits, but with an undercurrent of deep connection that everyone who saw them together recognized. 3 months after their arrival in Prescott, on a crisp autumn evening with the scent of pine needles in the air, Kieran proposed during a walk around the town plaza. He offered her not just a gold ring with a small diamond, but a deed to a piece of land on the outskirts of town with a view of Granite Mountain, a place where they could build something new together. I want roots, he told her as she stood speechless, the deed and ring in her hand. After years of drifting from town to town, following trails that led nowhere good, I want to build something that lasts. With you. Yes, she said simply, and it felt like the most natural word she had ever spoken. They were married in the territorial courthouse on Christmas Eve, 1871, with Judge Parker presiding and half the town in attendance. The governor and his wife stood as witnesses, and to everyone's surprise, a small delegation from Black Hawk's band arrived the day before the ceremony, bringing gifts and blessings from the Apache leader. Swift Arrow and Morning Bird were among them. the young warrior now serving as a liaison between his people and the territorial government. During the wedding reception, held in the grand dining room of the newly completed Palace Hotel, Swift Arrow approached the couple. "Good medicine," he said, gesturing between them. "Strong spirits together." As winter gave way to spring, Kieran and Jessie began building their home on the land. He had purchased a sturdy ranch house with wide porches and large windows to capture the mountain views. Jessie, discovering a talent for organization and advocacy, had accepted a position with the Territorial Indian Affairs Office, working to ensure the treaty terms were honored and helping other tribes negotiate similar agreements. One evening in April, as they sat on the half-finished porch watching sunset paint the distant mountains, Kieran noticed Jessie's hand resting protectively over her stomach. "Is there something you want to tell me?" he asked softly. Her smile was radiant as she nodded. "Dr. Mitchell confirmed it yesterday. By Christmas, we'll be 3 instead of 2. Joy swept through him as he gathered her into his arms. "Are you happy?" "Truly. Happier than I ever thought possible after." She didn't need to finish the sentence. "I used to think I was cursed to live when everyone I loved died. Now I know I was being saved for this, for you. For us, for the family we're creating." "Then curse me too," he whispered against her hair, echoing words spoken months ago beside a desert stream. "Because I wouldn't trade this life with you for anything." Their daughter was born the following December, a strong, healthy girl with her mother's chestnut hair and her father's gray eyes. They named her Hope, a testament to what had brought them together and what continued to guide them forward. As Prescott grew and the territory moved toward statehood, the Davenport home became known as a place where people of all backgrounds were welcome: territorial officials and Apache representatives, settlers and native leaders, anyone seeking common ground in a land still defining itself. The story of the cursed girl and the marshal who had declared, "Then curse me too," became something of a legend in territorial Arizona, a tale of how love could transform even the deepest wounds into sources of strength and healing. But for Jessie and Kieran, it wasn't legend but lived reality, every day a choice to build something meaningful from the lives they had nearly lost. Every moment together a quiet defiance against the darkness that had once threatened to consume them both. And when people asked Jessie if she believed in curses anymore, she would smile and look at her husband, their daughter, the home and community they had built together, and say simply, "I believe in making your own fate and finding blessings in the most unexpected places."